Before I get started, I've been fortunate to receive a lot of good phone calls in my life, but when President Murphy called me to be this year's commencement speaker, I was quite honored. It's up there with the commissioner of the NFL, so thank you. But I also had a thought. I said, I don't think she realized I took speech class during the summer, so this is quite a final, right? All right. Graduates, today we gather to celebrate a milestone. The more you come accustomed with this feeling, and there will be more times ahead, the more you realize how important these moments are to celebrate. At the same time, while patting yourself on the back is good, all of us, new graduates like you, other graduates like myself, know that this isn't something you accomplish on your own. So although your diplomas only display your name, we know that many more people helped supported you than are shown on this prized piece of paper. Family, friends, and every kind of support group help affirm your abilities and your feeling of belonging. Maybe they share their own vulnerabilities. A moment of fear, similar to a moment of fear that you may have felt, or regret they hope that you would avoid. Their support in many different ways likely pushed you to meet this moment. And guess what? It worked. Here you are. And here we are, meeting at this important crossroads in your lives. If you allow me, I'd like us all to treat these next few minutes as if we've been on a long trek. And we're taking a moment on that journey to stop, rest, and collect ourselves. And as we do, I'm going to share with you some stories that will hopefully help you map out what's next in the journey to come. Like it or not, by the time we get to college, we arrive pretty hardwired about our beliefs in the world. The truth is that even as well-educated OSU graduates, we don't know a lot about how complex the world can be, or the unknown. This isn't just true for all of you. In fact, the older that you get, the more you realize how much more there is to learn. But that's not what I was thinking the day my junior year I decided to leave Corvallis to pursue my professional career. I thought I had everything figured out. In fact, that afternoon, I announced to my teammates in the locker room that whoever wanted free furniture and appliances could make their way to my apartment and take them. True story. A new world awaited me. A fire was burning in my belly. I'm sure many of you have that same feeling right now. Look out, world. I have something to prove. Of course, my failure to grasp that I still needed furniture and appliances in that new world was probably not a great sign. Still, things in the NFL got off to a great start. I had worked hard to get there and make the most of my talents, and success soon followed. A dream I had since I was a young boy was being realized. I was building a new network of peers and connections. My confidence rose, and I started to make strides in my own life. Then I found myself on losing team, season after season. Things around me began to change, and as they did, the way I saw the world would change too. Disappointing friendships, the critiques of critics, and the judgment I would make of myself made me feel more and more isolated. It was true. I had realized a dream, and what a blessing that was. There was no mistaking that. But at the same time, I felt that I was on an island, and those closest to me could only experience what I was going through from afar. I found myself wondering, what was it all for? I needed to get outside of myself and change how I saw things. I was reminded of a lesson in many ways I learned at OSU. both on the football field and in the classroom. Faced with adversity, you have to find a way to evolve and approach things differently. I landed on a simple idea. Maybe I could change how I saw the world by seeing the world. So travel became my outlet. Football season more or less ran all year long. But every year there's a small window in February when I could take off, and I did. I picked places I knew little about. Places I would feel unfamiliar and uncomfortable. And it will force me to have new experiences that will lead me into new challenges. Almost always, I was alone. During these journeys, I discovered more about myself than I did watching hours of film and studying and practicing techniques. And to be clear, I did all of that too. Traveling solo requires you to be content with yourself and actually makes you very observant about the things around you. These trips took me around the world, and I did a lot of things. I went paragliding over the Iguazu Falls in Argentina. I went cage diving with great whites. That was crazy though. You actually watch the great whites breach the waves and feed on seals before you go into the shark cage. Why? Well, that's a good chance they won't want to burst through the cage and eat you. Well, that's the way they sold it to me, at least. I learned a lot from these journeys. Great whites taught me it's possible to be both mesmerized by beauty and pee yourself pants of fear at the same time. Meeting strangers and sharing conversations with people who knew nothing about me and who I knew nothing about gave me new perspectives on how I saw the world and allowed me to take a break from how I saw my own. I gradually began to see a change in myself. Every time I returned from a journey, I felt more capable of dealing with the challenges of my career and my personal life. I want to be clear, it wasn't that these challenges were any less harder, I was just more prepared to deal with them. This is life we're talking about, and I don't want to minimize how challenging it can be. Sorry. I've seen this vision before, and I know I'm meant to be here right now. And ultimately, all these journeys would prepare me for the journey where I would learn the most. You probably think I'm going to say something like life next, but actually I'm talking about a real journey I took in 2018. The hardest and the most rewarding I've taken to date. 19,341 feet to the top of Mount Kilimanjaro. It was a challenging time in my life because I had just retired, or one might say, graduated from playing football. Once again, I was having to find myself in the world. A friend of mine, Chris Long, invited me and a bunch of other former NFL players and some military veterans to the East African nation of Tanzania to help build water wells for his project, Water Boys. Water Boys is an effort to address the clean water crisis across the globe. To bring awareness to Water Boys, we were also going to hike to the summit of Mount Kilimanjaro. It was a great cause, and when Chris asked, I immediately accepted. I also invited one of my mentors and a military veteran, Anthony Goins, to come on the hike with me. And he did. There's a deep reverence between the men and women of the armed services and the NFL players. There's a mutual respect for the hard work and the selflessness that goes into our respective teams. Something we take a great deal of pride in, and it sparks a kind of natural camaraderie too. We get each other. That's part of my connection with Anthony, a financial businessman from the Midwest who was in his early 50s at that time. There's also something else we share. Anything that we sign up for, we finish. On top of that, I felt a great responsibility to get Tony back home safe and sound to his wife and family. The hike took place during February, and weather in Tanzania at that time was fairly warm. It was part of what made climbing Mount Kilimanjaro a challenge, because despite how hot it was in the city, the mountaintop is typically below zero and sometimes far below. So our packs had to be well thought out, and and my pack was right under 30 pounds, and I carried it all the way up the mountain into the night of our trek to the summit. It earned me the nickname Superman, rightfully so. You should try it sometimes. You also have to carry the pack for 5 days, while you hike the equivalent of 4 vertical miles. Actually, it usually takes 6 days, but we were a team of former athletes and military veterans, so we decided to do a day faster. We like to compete in everything that we do. The day we headed out of base camp, there were 13 of us, plus all the support crew and a documentary team from the NFL Films who was there to shoot the whole adventure. Each day we would put in 8 to 10 hours of the hike to stay on track. Along the way, I learned some powerful lessons. The first was this: at the end of each day, make a joyful noise. And if you're like me, give Yah the praise. What do I mean? As we reached each night of the trek, we would be exhausted and almost no one was talking. The only sound that there was the boots of our hitting the dirt as we approached camp. But as we got near, one of the locals in our group will welcome us with a song. Our guides explaining that it was meant as a celebration of the hard work that we had put in that day. Those few minutes each night seemed to rejuvenate me and everyone else. It made me more aware and thankful for the journey I was on and the community I was taken in with. The songs and their meanings have stuck with me to this day. Make a joyful noise. And if you just have to say thank you and over again to yourself, you'll feel a change in yourself and the atmosphere. Hallelujah. The songs and its meanings, After 5 days of hiking, we were ready to summit. The plan was straightforward. We would leave at 10 p.m. and hike in the darkness. It would take 8 hours to reach the summit, and if we timed it right, we would hit the summit just as the sun rose. Headlamps on, we stepped into the unknown. Those hours of hiking through the night were long ones. We did everything to get ourselves through it. Small talk, chants, anything to keep your mind occupied and one foot in front of the other. Hours passed, and finally, darkness began to give way to pastels in the sky. Over those past 5 days, I'd been with Anthony pretty much every step of the way. But as dawn approached, we closed in on a summit. The air began to get thinner, and it became harder and harder to breathe for everyone. It was then that I realized Anthony was a few hundred feet behind me on the route. He was barely moving compared to the pace he was the rest of the hike. Altitude sickness at nearly 20,000 feet is a very real thing. I headed back down, and when I reached him, Anthony didn't say a word, but he wasn't in good shape. I wasn't sure what to do, but this was my mentor, someone who I cared about and truly loved as a human being. And something in his eyes told me what I needed to say next. We're going to finish this, and we're going to finish this together. The moment taught me another lesson, and it wasn't a new one. But that's the one thing I've found in life, that you can learn the same lesson at different points in your life and take different things from it. It was simply this: not only are we not alone, but we're lucky to have the people who bring meaning to our lives. We should express our gratitude to them and rejoice in having them. After taking so many trips alone to find my own voice, it was a funny lesson to be reminded of. It's something that I learned when I first started playing football. As a young boy, because no matter how good you are, no one player can win a game alone. It takes everyone. But life isn't a game. It's a lot more complicated. And that's why the people around us are everything. I truly believe that our purpose lies not only in what we do for ourselves, but in what we do and how we are to the people around us. Sometimes that involves sacrifice. Sometimes that means persisting through pain. Virtually every time is worth it. I saw that as clear as day in that moment with Anthony, literally. We walked together, step by painful step, forcing ourselves through each hard-fought breath, until finally, together, we reached the summit of Mount Kilimanjaro. And let me tell you, the sunrise, it was glorious. It was less than an hour later, Mount Kilimanjaro left me with this third and final lesson. It happened right there on the summit, which makes sense because it was about reaching the summit. We're not meant to stay there. Make no mistake, when Anthony and I stood there on what they call the roof of Africa, it was an amazing moment, and I'll be lying to you if I didn't say how great it was to get there. The view was remarkable, but it goes without saying, no one is meant to live at the summit of a mountain. For one thing, the air at those lofty heights are awfully thin, and there's not a whole lot there to support life. Reaching the summit is just a moment, but your life continues afterward. So graduates of 2024, as I stand at this summit of your academic journey, take a moment, savor the view. You've experienced so much on your journey, everything from new friends to social distancing, to the stress of finals, to house parties, to now. You've created memories that will last forever. Make a joyful noise today. I'll say it again. Make a joyful noise today. Celebrate with your loved ones. Remember the importance of support, the value of evolving through challenges, and the balance of solo and shared experiences. And then begin your next journey. And if ever our paths cross, do not hesitate to give me a go, Beavers, because now we're family forever. Congratulations, good luck, and God bless.